Welcome, welcome, welcome. Joey Dumont, who's about to do his book reading.
What's up, buddy?
How about that?
Yeah, thank you for accepting, and I appreciate the anticipatory support.
You're very welcome. If I can be there, I'll be there.
Great show, Marcus. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the video specifically. I thought that was so well crafted and well done.
Thank you very, very much. And thank you for watching.
Oh, I watch as much as I can. I out of the 186 shows, I think I've probably watched 150 of them, be my guess.
Wow.
So I'm a pretty big fan of Mr. Jaffe, in spite of him.
Well, thank you very much.
I'm just going to go and grab some water. I'll be back in about 2 seconds.
And John Dodds wants to know what the Zoom is, so I will. Do you know who John Dodds is?
I couldn't get my lighting right, you guys. No, I understand life is a cinema. Life is a film. I got to get my lighting better.
As your virtual brain product.
I need a cinematographer right here in my house.
Well, I'm going to try and just get somebody else on who wants to come on. So let me try and do that.
Hey, Stephen. Hi, Thomas. What's up?
Hey, Joey, how'd it go, man?
Man, dude, I got to tell you, 2.5 hours.
Whoa.
And it was as a first podcast, I can't say I could not walk away happier. I obviously have a lot to learn, but it was awesome.
That's so good to hear. I meant to write you this weekend and things happened. I was going to say, man, I'm so eager to find out. And you got to plug us all into this so we have access to it.
I will. My publicist wants 3 in the can before I start to propagate. So I have to shoot 2 more. So probably in the next month, it's, as a buddy, I can send it to you before we go public.
Definitely. Anytime, man.
Okay.
I'd love to see it. There he is. Marcus, good stuff.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, I just had to get some drinkies.
Good. Yeah, I got to do the same.
I'm still drinking. I'm in coffee because it's only 9. Well, it's 10 now, but it's only 10.
But this is I'm doing the dry January thing, so it's just lemonade.
Most people.
I had a lot of friends try the January dry thing, except last week kind of spun everybody to the wine bottle. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. Things are kind of quiet at the moment in Germany. I mean, there's stuff to moan about, obviously, but thankfully, America is doing a really good job of just showing us that, regardless of how bad we think we've got it.
Yeah, we're doing our best. We're trying to make our allies feel really good about their leaders.
If it were just our version of performance art, it would be so much better. But
well, that was considerate of us.
Well, we are good people.
If you look very, very carefully in the slides of my performances, there's an organization that this company, so that the corporation is called the Coalition, that they use the services of something called the Black Operatives Department, which is a covert communications organization. And they come up with projects and things. And one of the projects is called Project Orange. And I actually predicted, I think it was in 2016. No, when was it? It was a year before. I said that Donald Trump would run and win, and called it Project Orange in this thing. And everybody laughed at me and I said, and I predicted Brexit and everybody laughed. And I said, I got to get a German passport because Brexit. And who's laughing now?
Okay, so what's next is what we want to know.
You know,
as long as we're here, not in exchange for money, but we want the free next prediction.
Yeah. You see, I was talking to Joseph about this in the pre-show lobby. That this whole kind of dystopian piece. I was actually writing a column it was a fictional column for a marketing magazine here in Germany, which was just about the Black Operatives Department. And in April, I just wrote to the editor and said, I can't write any more dystopia. I just can't do it anymore. It's not funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's not relevant and it's really, really hard to do when you're actually living in it, when it's happening in real time. So I've kind of got out of that. I got out of that mindset. Although, I had friends who were pleading with me to stop writing this stuff because it would all come true. But it's none of it had anything to do with kind of like some, I don't have Shining or anything. It's just it's about doing the research and like watching what's going on and kind of like piecing bits and pieces together. It's like the guy who predicted in December that the 6th of January was going to happen. Mm-hmm. He didn't have a crystal ball. He was just reading 4chan and doing the research. So I've kind of stepped away from that, and that a lot of that has got to do with the new work around the Wicked Pack of Cards, which is in a completely different space. It's fictional. It's a completely different universe. It's removed from reality. There's no kind of. It's still about the world of business. It's the premise for Wicked Pack of Cards is what would happen if business consultants discovered paganism. And the main character, Joseph, kind of blended in the guy with the hat and the fishing vest with looks a little bit like Joseph Beuys. It's a guy called Joseph Blasphemous, and he has a wicked pack of cards. And the cards are seemingly blank. These are his business tools, and he'll give you readings. But you can only actually see what's on the cards if you really truly believe in them. So, and that's kind of like the premise of the Wicked Pack of Cards. And I'm building building an entire kind of platform around the idea of business spells.
I like that because it's a play on what's come out of Joey's state of California for a very long time, with people on the fringes of this, with their books with titles like The Secret and all that. It is amazing how there's this undercurrent of more than Gnosticism, or almost a necromancy, of something very close to paganism. So that's good that you've done that.
Well, thank you, and well spotted. There is actually there was a very interesting article in, I think it was Fast Company, somewhere in the middle of last year about business spirituality.
Yeah.
I've been talking a lot about business as the occult. I'm giving a lecture at the end of this week for Kingston College of Art about this. And a lot of people kind of like look at you as if you've completely lost your mind. But if you think about, the business has rituals. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have forecasting, reforecasting, we have QBRs, we have financial reviews. The main thing in a Wicked Pack of Cards is called the procurement moon. So it's the rite of the procurement moon. It's at a phase of the moon, and you have to do a ritual which then chimes in the new financial year. So you have to do these rituals so that you have a good new financial year, because each new financial year is different, depending on the moon and depending on the cards and depending on. So we have there are sects within business. There are churches. We have things like Six Sigma.
Yeah.
if you think about it.
The priesthood associated with each of these, right?
Yeah, and then you have black belts and green belts, and you have the processes and swim lanes and all of these kind of things, and even even actual proper kind of like history of economics and things. You have the Knights Templar with the first bank, for heaven's sake. So all of those things are kind of flow into the stuff that I'm working on and mixed in.
If I can say this, Marcus, what I love about that is that on one level, it can be seen as a spoof and a takedown, but at another level, it's almost a look at the deep logic / illogic. It could go either way with respect to how we approach topics of great importance. It's about our superstitious past. It's about our desire for a concept to use earlier, true alchemy, and not allowing all the pretenders to take it in a crazy direction. There's just so much tied up in here, intertwined in this. I really, really like it. So I'm glad you're doing that.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, thank you. And it's also a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun to do. And there is a very, very thin line between the art of this and conspiracy theory. Right. So I'm having to be very, very careful and very, very precise about what it is. I mean, because I'm sure we've all read there was a fantastic article on the Atlantic, the QAnon article on Atlantic, which broke down all of the bits and pieces. And while I was reading, I was thinking, oh, bloody hell, that's really, really close to a wicked pack of cards. So, there is a lot of spoof. I'm very, very keen to avoid snark and sarcasm. There is a lot of playful prodding in the work I do. So, the idea of being a hustlepreneur, I think is hilarious because it's so close to the nonsense of LinkedIn.
It is.
The procurement moon as a thing is something that still makes me laugh even now, a year later. I was just, it's an odd thing. I self-published this a year ago. And it feels like yesterday, but it also feels like 1,000 years ago. I think that's the experience we've all had in 2020. And I was just flicking through it, and there's still things in here that make me laugh so hard because they're just ridiculous, and they're still relevant today.
And what's so weird is that a lot of your potential readership grew up on Harry Potter, which is this weird reflection of some of the pagan and yet Aristotelianism. And I did a book in 1994 called True Success for Penguin Putnam, and I'm a philosopher by training. And the editor, who used to be philosophy editor at Yale Press, praised my book to me by saying she couldn't believe how pagan it was. And I thought, wait, what? What's she drawing on in that comparison? But there's just all this swirling stuff out in our culture that you are either plugging into or alluding to or referring to or bouncing off. And I just think it's a very artistic blend that is so creative. I'm really mad I didn't think of it myself.
Well, that's a nice response to get from somebody.
And that's Tom's litmus test. It's the test of a great idea is why the hell didn't I think of it myself?
Yeah.
That's just not Tom. That's our Tom Morris. We're very proud of him.
Thank you, our Stephen Rubin. I appreciate that.
This is our, we have about 4 or 5 regulars who are not on today. And we've become this little family, Marcus, and we've got to know each other and we've got to help each other. Although we haven't figured out the in exchange for money part yet, but we're working on it. That's our work in progress. I wanted to just say a couple things. One is, when I had Seth Godin on my show, his whole thing right now is he's railing against hustlers and industrialists, and he uses the words very deliberately and repetitively. And I mean, I think it's not. I mean, it's not dissimilar to the hustle. The hustle entrepreneur. But that was one thing. But the other thing is, I think Tom's very astute point is, you found the line between, is he kind of poking fun at me, or is he just telling me what I already knew, or is he waking me up from my slumber? And I think it's not that easy to find, the line to kind of help people connect with what they know to be true, or maybe have buried it or suppressed it or repressed it, or whatever the case may be. And I just think it's, it is important now to find that outlet. And the final point is, the thing about you is you are so unique, but so unique in that people are deciding with you, whereas probably they would not do it with any other speakers. Where the hell do we put this guy? That's not a question. That's not. I mean, they may say it for Tom Morris, they may say it for Joseph Jaffe, but it's not really a high stakes decision. Tom can open, Joseph can close. Should we stick him on before lunch because people, or do we put him on right after lunch when people are a little bit lower energy? But with you, it's like, where do we put him on where he may not smash this entire event? And or where do we put him on where he may just create the kind of event that people will remember for the rest of their lives? And that, of course, is the goal. And I just think that's where you live, and that's where people desire to live. That was me. That was my English composition. That's what connects with all of us.
On the edge, on the edge. Is this going to be the greatest thing we've all ever experienced together, or will it be horror of horrors? I was always, the night before Marcus, I used to teach at the University of Notre Dame for 15 years, but I quit 25 years ago just to be a public philosopher. But my classes, I taught an eighth of the student body most years, and I would always have these spectacular things happen in class that either would be the greatest thing ever and students would remember it verbatim 20 years later, or I would look like a total idiot, a fool, and a wreck of a human being. And the night before, I could never sleep before these things. My wife said, "Why do you do this to yourself?" And I said, "I have to, because this either has to be the greatest thing my students have ever experienced, or I'm a total failure."
Yeah,
and
that was the quote from Marcus. He said, I wrote it down. He said, I can't do this stuff any other way.
Yeah, well, there you go. And I still think I never succeeded to the level I wanted to, even though I hear from students all the time. This week, a guy wrote me and said, "My kids are grown now, and they've grown up on my stories from your Philosophy 101 class at Notre Dame in the 1980s. And I'm thinking, wow. And I still would have given myself an A- at best on any of those occasions, and wish I have a redo. Man, this time I think I could really do it right, I want flying saucers to land. I want UFOs to land. I want Billy Graham to lead a prayer and the buses will wait. I want it to be the life-changing experience where we all just spontaneously combust and we rise into the air. I mean, otherwise, why waste your time?
Yeah, I had a Flex, the performance that where I'm Flex was the performance where it's very, very obvious that it's a performance. So because I come on stage and I'm covered, I've got a white face with black eyes and a black cross across my face, and it's the whole thing is a mix of strategic kickoff, pantomime, musical, and nightmare. The composer it was the first time I actually worked with another artist on a thing. So the music in Flex was composed by a man called Timo Peach, a composer, and he was actually in Berlin to see the premiere, which Joseph shared with us this evening, or this morning, or the afternoon, wherever you are in the world. He said to me on the morning of that show. So just to give you some context, that was performed at the Republica in Berlin, which is 3-day massive. I think it's the biggest, certainly the biggest festival in Germany, maybe in Europe, around that kind of net politics, internet stuff. It's kind of like my favorite place to perform. Stage 1, biggest stage. I'm closing day 2, or am I closing? I'm closing day 2. So it's a big slot. I've never performed it before. I'm really nervous about it. It's such a big thing that I didn't even have a space to rehearse it. So I've been basically rehearsing here in my studio. The character design had taken place maybe 6 months earlier. So I'd done a mood board. I'd worked with a photographer and with a makeup artist to come up with the look that I was going for. So I was kind of like, I was in this space, but Timo came up to me in the morning. I was having a cup of coffee. My pulse must have been about 180, 200. And he looked at me and said, Marcus, you have to go all in. If you pull back just a tiny bit, the audience won't believe you. You have to go all in on this one. Mm-hmm. So, with the other ones I do, it's slightly different because it's just a man in a suit doing a thing. And that's almost kind of like that's the trick in it, because that's why people were going, what's going on? I thought this shouldn't be about advertising or something. So that's kind of like the trick. And then I can pull them in with the story. But with Flex, it's kind of like, bam, in your face. He comes on stage, he's holding this thing, and then he starts kind of singing.
It's like the Joker
quite.
From Batman does a keynote, yeah,
Joker exactly. Well,
everybody's going to remember.
Yeah, exactly. So it was. I mean, there was lots of that. There were lots of elements to what Tyler as a character became, and how his story unfolds over the course of an hour. It's an hour long, which is a challenge as well. It's a challenge to be on your own on the stage for an hour, stage managing and producing the show live from the stage. So I don't have a production team at the back queuing up videos and doing stuff. I'm doing it with a clicker. I was literally doing it all with a clicker. And if you watch what I'm doing, there are large segments of the Flex, which is one click, but then I'm doing 5 minutes, and it's all cued, and the slides are timed. So there's a sound file which is running on behind it, but the slides are queued up to the sound. So I have to hit my cues. Yeah. So I'm going through all of this stuff, and I'm trying to remember the thing and doing all this stuff. And there weren't any foldback monitors on the stage. So I get onto the stage and I'm kind of like waiting for my thing to happen, and I can't hear it. So I can only just hear it a little bit. Yeah, it was absolutely, it was mind-boggling. So I've got all of these things. But I normally, when I do these things, I always, and this is something that I tell my speaker mentees, that you have to get into the space, you have to talk to the tech team. I'd actually written an entire mod book with stage direction and lighting things, and gone through with that with a stage manager and a tech team. I saw the cameras. I worked out where all the cameras were. I talked to the cameramen. And, there was a dolly at the front of the stage. And I said, if I'm working with you, then go with it. Talking to the stage, talking to the director of the live stream, which then is the video that goes onto YouTube. Because I knew that the product is actually not necessarily the actual live performance. which was amazing. The vibe, people still talk about the atmosphere in the room. It was like brittle. People were waiting for the magic to break, for me to drop the ball, like for it not to work. It was it was an incredible atmosphere in the room because it was like so mad.
Yeah.
So I get onto the stage. I was booked to do it last year, yeah, but it got cancelled because of Corona.
Wow. Congrats, dude. As a keynote guy, I mean, I was only showing videos, but the amount of effort that would take.
Oh yeah.
with the clicker and the actual soundboard, having to actually gel with the speech, and then as you having to take care of that, I couldn't do it. I could say that.
Someone actually, Gordon Fong asked this. I never got to ask the question, Marcus. He said, sorry, a crass question by me to Marcus. If a big brand asked you to singularly create that presentation, the passing for them to present, that's £1 million plus project, right? I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
No.
Rhetorical question.
I'm not quite sure $1 million would do it actually in terms of production. I think that would probably in terms of hello, who are you? That's a new face on front of the screen. I think it would probably be at the bottom end of production because of the production. I'd love to do that. I'd love to do the first one as a film. I'd also love to do Passing as a film. And I'm actually thinking of doing Flex. I have access to a virtual LED studio. I'm considering investing. I bootstrap everything. If I want to do something, I'll do it. And I'll do commercial, I'll do speaker trainings until I've got enough money so that I could do these things. And there is definitely, there is definitely the idea of doing Flex in an LED studio as a live event, which I think would be amazing.
Yeah.
But the answer to that question is yes, of course. For
me.
Yeah, I had the image of a high wire guy, a high wire artist who's not just walking without a net across that stretched out cable, but he's got in his hands a clicker in one hand and something else in the other hand. And it's like, I mean.
Do you want to know what it was really like?
Yeah.
It's like being the tightrope walker, and you're actually putting out the tightrope while you're walking on the tightrope to get to the other side. Yeah. That's exactly what it felt like.
I can imagine.
No, I know what it felt like. It felt like basically needing to go to the toilet and being in a factory of toilets.
No story will ever beat that story. That's just like, we can all relate to that on a really deep level.
Man,
organic, visceral.
It was very visceral. I can tell you that.
Marcus,
that's why Dumb and Dumber was so funny.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Remember
that scene from Dumb and Dumber? I mean, that captures everybody's story of trying to get to a toilet fast.
Yeah.
I'll try and tell you this story as quickly as I possibly can, but only to make you feel better, Marcus. But this was my worst business meeting ever. And just I don't know if I've told you guys this, but my little consultancy, Crayon, my first company, we're pitching the mighty Walmart, and we fly down day trip to Bentonville, Northwest Arkansas, and hello, and we are like, we're good. I mean, we're the Second Life little agency. We know we're up against the biggest WPP Omnicom companies, but we really live this stuff. We get community. And we go and we work in a Starbucks, and we have a couple of cups of coffee so that we're wired. Then we go to I'll never forget, a Panera. And while we're there, we see like all the other agencies we're pitching against, which is kind of like, keep your friends close, your enemies closer. We're very cordial, etc. And then we decide, you know what? Let's play it safe. We're going to go to the lobby and go through all the security checks and everything. And we'll be there like 35, 40, 45 minutes early. Why not? 45 minutes early, just so that like no surprises. We go there, we walk in, we're strutting, we're confident, things are awesome. And we go and they call our host. And all we hear on the other end is, "Where the hell are you? Where the hell are you?" And we're like, "We're in your lobby. What are you talking about?" They go, "Why? Like, what happened to you?" We said, "Nothing happened to us. We're here 45 minutes early." And she said, "No,
Ooh.
we are on Central Standard Time.
Oh.
You're here 45 minutes."
Oh man.
Like, and so a presentation that should have been, I guess, an hour and a half, we ended up with 15 minutes left to be able to present. There were 17 people meant to be in the meeting. By the time we walked in, there were 2. We tried to rush through everything. It was just an absolute train wreck. We get back to the airport, tail between our legs. Things are really, really not great. And then we hear that our plane has mechanical trouble and then is canceled. And now we're spending the night in Northwest Arkansas. And by the way, we have no toiletries. We have no change of clothes, no underwear. We refused to go and buy all of that stuff from a Walmart. I think we went to Kmart, and we ended up staying at some 1-star motel / hotel where we just figured we were just going to drink our sorrows away, like the bottle of wine. But then we find out that there's a very specific drinking law in Arkansas, which is you have to be a member of a club in order to be able to consume alcohol. So we said, well, what are we going to do? And they said, well, if you go to room 164, that's also our bar. Like literally they turned a room into a bar. And we walk in there and we signed and joined the club. And there was like an 800-pound man just sitting there watching American Idol and Kelly Clarkson, I guess, on American Idol. And he invited us to join him as we sat there drinking I don't know what it was, cheap brandy. Flew out the next day, and it was definitely, is, always will be my worst business.
See, that is the quintessential, this is what the speaking business is really like story. This is what the pitching business is really like. That's good. I like that story. We've all got our versions, right?
I'm glad I brought some joy to your day, Tom. Marcus John Henry Brown, it's been an absolute pleasure to reacquaint with you. If you ever find that parody video that you did of me, will you send it to me?
The likelihood of me finding that is 0.
I know that's the problem.
It's a shame, actually. They were very they were good. I really enjoyed that.
These weren't the ones where you were like doing the reading sitting on the toilet, was it?
They were.
Ironically, it came back to haunt you. Karma is a bitch, you know.
That was called the Kaiser's Toilet. That project was called the Kaiser's Toilet.
I see a theme, a pattern developing.
He did these brilliant parodies where he went and he took on all these influencers, all these social media windbags or airbags, and he read from their books, probably the most, out of context, it just made him sound like a big bunch of douchebags. And he did all these readings of their profound prose sitting on the throne as the Kaiser. It was just spectacularly brilliant. Even though I was being laughed at, I appreciated it. And I
think you actually got off quite well. If I remember rightly, David Amano suffered. He was actually the first one. David Amano was the first one. I think it was actually probably the best one. I think I said something like David Armano's was like a triptych of tweets that he'd put together or something. And I deconstructed his, I was using kind of Roland Barthes semiology to kind of deconstruct David Armano's corporate tweets. I can't remember where he was working back then. It was kind of pre Edelman. So it was probably, was he a freelance graphic designer at the time or something? But everybody who was involved was was very sweet about it. That actually got a lot of traction because one of the I was reading while doing at the beginning of every video, I'd be reading a business book, as kind of like by way of those projects were snarky. I'm going to be honest about that. They were kind of snarky. And I was reading the Clue Train Manifesto, and Chris Locke was sent the video and loved it and wrote and sent it out in his newsletter. And all of a sudden I'm getting loads and loads of traffic on my website, and I'm trying to work out where all this shit is coming from. And it turned out that it was from Chris Locke. So the Clue Train Manifesto gang just seemed to love it. So
yeah, well, I mean, your words from the after show, which I think it's what a lot of us live by, as he said, was the advice we were given. You have to go all in, and that it's still the challenge. It's really a story of life, which is, do you go all in, or are you always just hedging and straddling and playing both sides and playing it safe? And I think that really was the story of today. So I appreciate the opportunity to finally connect with the Kaiser himself.
Yeah,
it was
gone.
great, man.
I know.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me. It was generally it was lovely, and I hope it was interesting and helpful. And goodbye.
Yeah. Thank
Cheers,
you
man.
for your generosity of coming to the after show too, man. It was a lot of fun.
Appreciate
No,
it.
I mean,
Awesome.
more than happy. Absolute pleasure to be here, and I'm going to go and have some food now because my wife is in the kitchen and she's been tapping on the door.
All
So
right.
it's time to go. So goodbye, everybody. Thank you very
I'll be in
much, very
touch.
very much for having me.